Look, there's probably a lot of reasons as to why you're plateauing on your ketogenic journey, why you're not losing weight anymore, okay? And it would take me hours to explain all of them. So what I've done is I've isolated what I think are the 9 most powerful things that you can shift to break your ketogenic weight loss plateau. These are things that I've experienced myself, things that I've seen other people go through, and this isn't just basic YouTube stuff, okay? This is going to get a little bit granular and it's going to be a little bit more esoteric. So I think you'll really get something out of this. At least one of the 9 things I'm going to talk about will probably apply to you. So let's go ahead and let's dive in. Okay, first I want to make sure you hit that red subscribe button. Okay, that subscribes you to this awesome channel where you're going to get new content every single day. And then I want you to hit that little bell icon. Turn on all notifications. That way, every time we post a video, you get a little ding, you get a little ping on your phone, and you can watch a daily educational video. So let's go ahead, let's jump in. Okay, first one, kind of an obvious one, but we have to expand. Too much fat prior to bedtime. The first thing we have to look at is just sort of the big picture of this. It is so easy, and I do this myself, to stay strict throughout the course of the day. And then you let your guard down at night. I was strict, what the heck, I'll have a couple fat bombs. What the heck, I'll have some more macadamia nuts. But that's calorically dense. It's so easy in the 1 to 2 hours prior to bedtime to eat half of your day's allotment of calories, simply because fats are calorically dense. But let's expand beyond that, okay? I will say, full disclaimer, it is mostly mental at that point. But if we look at the biochemistry of it, it's actually pretty fascinating. It goes beyond just that mental piece, which of course is important. You see, when you have a bunch of fats, it activates something known as HCAR. Okay, this HCAR2 is interesting because it reduces lipolysis. It reduces fat utilization. So what the heck? We used to think that if you consume fat, it's going to prime the pump and allow you to burn more fat. Well, especially in the case of right before bed, you're giving yourself a bunch of fats that is ultimately turning off the body's internal fat burning mechanism. In essence, you've given yourself enough fats that your body is fine, I'm good with these. But really what's happening is these fats trigger this HCAR2, which is a signaling mechanism to tell the body that it doesn't need to produce more ketones. What we're seeing in this current science, what we're seeing in new research, is that ketones have the ability to communicate with the brain to let the body know that there's enough ketones on hand and we don't need to produce more. So let's say you eat a bunch of fats, you produce a bunch of ketones, but then the ketones and the HCAR2 is able to signal the brain to say, hey, don't worry about producing ketones anymore. Put on the brakes because we've got enough. That's pretty crazy. The body has the ability to regulate its own ketone production based on how much is in the blood. So if you eat a bunch of fats before bed, you could potentially be turning off ketogenesis right before bed, which quite honestly, that's the best time to just burn fat while you sleep. So I would recommend not having a bunch of fats right before bed. Okay, number 2 is actually probably number 1, which is snacking. Here's the thing, when we snack, we end up spiking insulin, whether you're having fats, carbs, proteins, whatever. You have an insulin spike every time you eat something. Okay, and insulin, yes, that stands in the way of fat burning, but more importantly, it's stopping the production of glucagon. Glucagon spikes when insulin is down. Okay, so when insulin goes down, you have glucagon go up. Glucagon stimulates a lot of things. It stimulates hormone-sensitive lipase, so it stimulates lipolysis. It stimulates the body to actually utilize fat because there's no insulin present. Well, if you're eating every 2 or 3 hours, do the math. You're never getting a chance to actually allow the glucagon to elevate to trigger this hormonal cascade of positive events that allows you to utilize more fat. Another thing we have to look at is glucagon inhibits what is called acetyl coenzyme A carboxylase. Complicated word, once again, all it really means is it is stopping the carnitine shuttle pathway from working. So inside our cell, we have what's called the carnitine shuttle pathway, where basically carnitine shuttles fat into the mitochondria, into the cell. Well, whenever we are eating consistently, we're stopping that process. But once glucagon comes into the equation, because we've been having like these miniature fasts, we allow that carnitine shuttle pathway to work, and we allow fat to be invited into the mitochondria for energy. So point is, in between your meals, you need to get very, very cut and dry. Almost have miniature fasts in between your meals. Think, I ate breakfast, I'm not gonna eat again until lunch, I'm doing a miniature 4 or 5 hour fast. Clear as day, cut and dry. Trust me, it will work. The next reason that you're probably plateauing, that you could probably switch up, is going to be doing periodic low-fat periods. Again, we come from this school of thought that we need to be constantly consuming fat. And that makes sense because again, we've heard prime the pump, consume those fats. But if you never give your body a chance to utilize its own stored tissue, how do you ever expect to burn fat and change your body composition? Okay, so what comes down to an interesting receptor protein that I'm a fan of called PPAR alpha. Now I'm getting a little scientific, but it's actually a pretty simple process. Whenever your body is forced to use its stored fat, it activates these protein receptors, PPAR alpha. Okay, this PPAR has genetic effects. Okay, it expresses genes, and it expresses genes that are related to fat burning. So not only do you literally reduce your caloric intake and quite virtually burn more fat that way, but you also have sort of a downstream genetic effect by temporarily reducing your fats. Okay, so eat your fats as you normally would, then take a couple days and just reduce your fat and just have the protein and the veggies for a little bit, then bring the fats back up. Another fun thing is that this PPAR alpha protein ends up increasing ketogenesis within the liver. So again, what that ultimately means for you is that you're conditioning your liver. Your liver is getting trained. It wants to burn ketones. So because of this receptor protein, the liver now wants to create more ketones. So when you do eat more fats, it's going to turn them into ketones a lot faster for you, thereby giving you the benefits of that ketone production, from histone deacetylase inhibition to cognitive function, all kinds of nerdy stuff. Okay, let's get back to the fat loss plateau stuff. The next one is going to be consuming more veggies. And full disclaimer, this is not for you if you're doing carnivore. If you're doing carnivore, I'm not trying to push veggies on you. I don't have an agenda. That's not what I'm talking about. If you're doing standard keto, you should increase your veggies more. There was a paper from 1962 that, yes, was done on rats, but it did indicate that the liver can turn butyrate from vegetables into beta hydroxybutyrate, which is the main ketone. Looks like this. Let me paint a clearer picture. You eat some veggies, your body breaks it down, the microbes in your gut break it down. Well, they break it down into what is called butyric acid, or butyrate. It's a short chain fatty acid that feeds the epithelial cells, it feeds your gut. It's just good for you. It turns out this butyrate is only one hydroxy group away from ketones. Beta hydroxybutyrate, butyrate. You can see the similarity there, right? Turns out the liver can turn butyrate into a ketone, at least in rats. But let's take a look at another study. The Journal of Functional Foods took a look at subjects that were eating toast and jelly, kind of weird, along with milk, also kind of weird. But then they had them either consume nothing with it, or they had them consume MCT oil, or they had them consume butyrate with it. Guess who had the highest level of ketones? The group that had the butyrate. Butyrate is ketogenic, thereby forcing your body or teaching your body to utilize ketones better. Butyrate itself is a signaling device that has powerful effects in your body as far as fat burning goes, as far as just gene expression goes, just overall. So if you eat veggies, one could imply that those veggies will break down into butyrate, and that butyrate itself is ketogenic. Having a hard time creating ketones? Maybe you just need to eat more veggies, not to mention it's going to keep you full. This next reason you could be plateauing is a big one, and it's simple. You're crossing through that carb gray area threshold. What I mean by that is there's a fine line between staying in ketosis and knocking yourself out of ketosis ever so slightly. I know you've been there before. Oh, I'm well within my rights to have this little chunk of a cookie. Oh, I'm well within my rights to have this little chunk of a lemon bar that my wife made. Okay, you've done it. I have. Okay, and what that means is that your body is going to have to utilize that glucose, and it's going to have to shift gears for just a minute. I'm not saying don't be human, but I'm saying that the stuff adds up. And if you cross that line, just that fine line, then all of a sudden you're in that carb gray area where your blood sugar is all cattywampus and you end up just making bad decisions, but you also end up not getting the benefits of ketosis and sitting in that low carb gray area where you're getting all the negative attributes of being low carb without the positive benefits of actually producing ketones because your body's having to metabolize glucose. So enjoy some snacks that are keto friendly, keep it strict unless it is a designated time to have your carbohydrates, which I recommend you do. If you want a good recommendation on a keto snack that I enjoy, check out Perfect Keto's keto bars down below. I put a link, that way you get special pricing, special discount. They are a big sponsor, a big supporter of this channel, and I extend a huge thank you to Perfect Keto for keeping this channel going and keeping these awesome videos going. But I also want to make sure that you're getting good prices on stuff. So check them out down below. I think you'll really like the keto bars that they have. They're just a really good snack. And honestly, the best way that you can support this channel is by supporting our sponsors. So I really appreciate you guys checking them out down below after this video is over. This next one is wild, but it's very true. When we are doing a ketogenic diet, it's easy for us to consume a lot of inflammatory foods. We just do. We consume lots of dairy, we consume lots of omega-6 fats. It's very easy to instill some inflammation within the body. Kind of a normal thing. But one of the points that I want to address and have you pay attention to is going to be little bits of gluten, little bits of grains, little bits of inflammatory foods that can trigger gut distress. What we don't want to have happen is have inflammation to such a degree where lipopolysaccharides, basically bacteria from our gut, can get into our bloodstream, triggering low-grade chronic inflammation. Okay? It's a double-edged sword. If you consume a bunch of inflammatory foods, you're going to cause inflammation within your gut, which thereby can trigger inflammation at a cellular level. And I'm just referencing science here. I'm not trying to play doctor or anything like that. I'm just explaining the situation. Okay? So you need to do what you can to modulate inflammation by eating foods that are known to be anti-inflammatory. We're talking salmon. We're talking adding fish oil into the mix if you can. We're talking about consuming a good amount of veggies so you get that butyrate effect within the gut that has been shown to be anti-inflammatory. Okay? It also feeds the epithelial cells. It takes care of those cells. So get the veggies, eat the anti-inflammatory foods, and avoid the gluten, even when it's in small amounts. And do whatever you possibly can to cut out the omega-6s, the soybean oil, the poor monounsaturated fats, the safflower oils, stuff like that. Just get them out of the diet and keep it clean. The seventh one that I want to talk about is consuming food or consuming fat or even branched chain amino acids prior to your workout or your exercise regimen at all. On keto, it is so easy to say, oh, I'm going to have some MCT oil because it's going to help me burn fat. Therefore, I'm going to burn more fat during my workout. Well, newsflash, you have 200 calories worth of MCT oil. You just made yourself have to work 200 calories harder to get through that in the first place. But more importantly, it's the fact that when you consume food prior to a workout, your body isn't able to tap in to the intramyocellular triglycerides. It can't tap into the fat that's in your muscle nearly as much. Here's a study to make some sense of this so you don't just have to take my word for it. The British Journal of Nutrition took a look at 12 relatively trained subjects. Okay, had them do a treadmill workout at 10 a.m. and they either consumed a little bit of food prior to or they went into that workout fasted. They both had identical post-workout shakes. Okay, they found the group that trained in a fasted state ended up eating less when they had lunch later on, but they also found that that group ended up using 20% more body fat. So they ended up burning more fat in their workout by training in a fasted state. It's that simple. Okay. Also, if you train in a fasted state, remember I talked about that PPAR alpha? It could allow that to upregulate a little bit faster. Okay. Don't have branched chain amino acids. That is an amino acid that's going to trigger an insulin release. Okay. Don't have a fat bomb. You can have a little bit of black coffee and that's about it. Then work out. Trust me, it will make a difference. The next one is another mental one. Okay. Number 8 is focusing too much on your ketone levels. High levels of ketones do not automatically mean that you're burning fat. If I guzzle a gallon of MCT oil in a ketogenic state, my ketones might go really high. Does that mean that I'm burning fat? No, it means that I'm burning the MCT oil and creating ketones. Do I get a benefit from the ketones? Oh, you betcha. But do I get a body composition effect at that point? No, because I'm probably in a caloric surplus to a high degree. Okay, so what I highly recommend that you do is not focus on the ketones. I've been doing keto for 10 years. My ketone levels on a good day are still less than 1 millimole. And if you measure your ketones, you know that's not much. Why? My body's efficient, it knows how to create them, and I don't focus on getting that number high. Sometimes after a long run, my ketone levels will be high. And that's a benefit because I know that I haven't eaten anything and I know the ketones are high because they're coming from my fat tissue or after a long fast, et cetera, et cetera. Point is, do not focus on that number. It only matters when you're trying to gather data for how your body functions. And lastly, and this is a very important one, do what you can to modulate stress in your life. Okay, stress triggers a cortisol release. Cortisol triggers the liver to dump glycogen into the bloodstream, which allows a lot of glucose into the bloodstream, which blunts ketogenesis. Not creating ketones? Maybe it's your lifestyle. And I know that you cannot control every bit of stress and external factor, but you can control yourself and you can live in the moment and try to remember that every single time you take a deep breath and lower that stress, you potentially allow your body to create ketones more. And it's not just about creating the ketones at that point in time. If your liver gets efficient at creating ketones, it will create them better in the future. So what you do now affects you tomorrow significantly. As always, keep it locked in here on my channel. See you tomorrow.